The top stories tonight in Y News. Several senators believe the anti-terrorism law must be fully implemented following the twin blast in Sulu on Monday.
National Bureau of Investigation has begun its probe on the twin bombings in Sulu. Meanwhile, Justice Secretary Guevara believes the declaration of martial law in Sulu depends on the nature of the incident.
The Health Department reiterates that the term reinfection should not be used to determine some cases of COVID-19 because there is no concrete evidence to prove reinfection. The Department of Transportation will require 100% cashless transactions in all toll plazas and expressways nationwide by November.
Spain to seek its army's help to identify people exposed to coronavirus, while Hawaii targets to test 60,000 people in Honolulu.
The 47 nations of the World Health Organization's African region have been certified as wild polio virus-free. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, August 26, 2020. I am Jorlene Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, following the twin bombings in Sulu last Monday, several senators believe the anti-terrorism law must now be fully implemented. During his privileged speech yesterday, Senator Ronald De La Rosa said this only shows that terrorists recognize no time and boundaries.
Ito na po yung kasagutan sa mga bumabatikos sa timing ng pagsabatas ng anti-terrorism law. Ano ba talaga ang mas matimbang sa inyo? Yung immediate threat na pwedeng gagawin ng gobyerno laban sa mga kritiko or itong real, clear, and present danger na makikita natin na nagkalasog-lasog na katawan ng ating mga sundalo, policemen at mga sibilyan.
Senators Christopher Bongo and Richard Gordon also stressed that it is high time that the law is implemented without any abuses.
We have already passed the anti-terrorism law and I urge the government to properly enforce the law within its bounds against those who break it and stop terrorism at its roots.
We have to pacify these areas. And if we need the anti-terrorism law to use it, basta walang abuse, dapat talaga pinapairal natin ang batas. Hindi tayo complain ng complain.
For Senate President Vicente Soto III, there is no need to place Sulu under martial law as the anti-terrorism law is already in place. According to Soto, the hopes to solve the terrorism in Mindanao was one of the reasons why they passed the measure. Senator Panfilo Lacson also expressed the same, adding that declaring martial law should have a strong justification, which is in pursuit of invasion or rebellion.
Naipasan na natin yung Anti-Terrorism Act, ano? At pinalakas natin yung batas. Kaya kung ang pinag-ugatan yung act of terrorism, parang hindi na necessary na magdeklara pa ng martial law, maski nakakonek ito sa invasion or rebellion. Kung ang talagang pagsisimula lang yung terorismo.
The Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, of the law is still being drafted, headed by the Department of Justice. Meanwhile, in today's session, Senator Risa Hontiveros called on the relief of the entire Philippine National Police in Sulu following the Sulu shooting incident, which killed 4 Army intelligence officers. Meanwhile, Senator Franklin Drilon asked why the policemen have not been preventively suspended. However, Senator De La Rosa says, insisting the theory that the policemen were connected to the Abu Sayyaf group without solid evidence will demoralize the police members in Holo Sulu.
Meanwhile, the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI, has begun its probe on the twin bombings in Holo Sulu. Meanwhile, Justice Secretary Guevara believes the declaration of martial law in Sulu depends on the nature of the incident. Dante Amento tells us why.
Department of Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara has instructed the National Bureau of Investigation to secure the blast area and preserve evidence following Monday's twin bombings in Barangay Walled City, Holo Sulu. He gave the NBI 10 days to submit an initial report and file legal actions against the perpetrators. The Philippine Army confirmed today that 2 female suicide bombers were behind the twin bombings, namely alias Nana from Basilan, the wife of late Norman Lasuca, the first Filipino suicide bomber, and alias Indanay, wife of the late Abu Talha. She resided in Tawi-Tawi. These 2 were the same targets being tracked by the group of Major Marvin Indamog before they were killed by policemen last July 29. Secretary Guevara added that President Rodrigo Duterte may implement martial law in Sulu if the incident was an act of rebellion. But if it was lawless violence, the President may call out the armed forces of the Philippines to suppress further violence under Section 18, Article 7 of the Constitution. And if it's a terrorist act, the government will enforce the anti-terrorism law. But former Sulu Governor Abdo Sacortan Sr. says he is against placing the province under martial rule again. He stresses that Sulu has been put in martial rule several times, but violence still continue.
Object kami dyan. Ayaw namin. Hindi naman ang solusyon na yan. Sinubukan na. Ilang beses na nag-martial law. Hindi naman naalis yung gera rito.
Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
President Rodrigo Duterte will consider the recommendation to declare martial law over Sulu after the twin blast in Holo. According to Malacanang, the president listens to officials and men on the ground. The Philippine Army has given such recommendation. The Philippine National Police supports the course of action. However, according to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, this has to pass the scrutiny of both the legislative and judiciary.
Yan naman po'y pinakikinggan o pakikinggan ng ating presidente. Siguro inaantay lang niya ang opisyal na report at request ng ating kapulisan at kasundaluhan, at yan naman po ay kinukonsidera ng ating presidente. Subject syempre doon sa legal and factual basis. So kapag ang report naman ay nagtugma na sapat na dahilan ito sa martial law, ikukonsidera naman po yan ng presidente.
The public has nothing to worry about the health condition of President Rodrigo Duterte, according to Malacanang. Our palace correspondent, Rosa Licos, will join us tonight to tell us why live. Yes, Rosalie.
Yes, Harleen, Malacanang assures it will divulge to the public in case President Rodrigo Duterte has a serious illness. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says that if the president has a serious medical condition, the president himself and the palace will make it known to public. Article 7, Section 12 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution states that in case of serious illness of the president, the public shall be informed of the state of his health. Several issues on the president's health have surfaced over the past weeks. The first was the alleged medical evacuation of the president to Singapore. And in his public address yesterday, he himself revealed that his doctor advised him to stop drinking alcohol to avoid worsening his Barrett's esophagus. Let's listen to what the president said on his statement.
Matagal na kami sa gobyerno. Magpa-retire na lang. Bakit pa namin pagsayangan? Kung konting panahon na lang naiwan, so walang ganang kumain. May pera ka naman, hindi ka na makakain. Kaya sabi ng doktor, huwag kang kumain ng taba kasi mamatay ka. Ikaw, Duterte, huwag ka nang uminom kasi yung Barrett mo nearing stage 1 ka sa cancer. Hindi na rin.
The doctor had given such advice to the president even before he took his oath of office.
Dati na po yan sinabi ng kanyang doktor na naging dahilan naman na mula nung siyang naging presidente, tinigil na po niya ang panginginom, no? So sa tingin ko po, the president did right by heeding the doctor's advice. At dahil he heeded the doctor's advice, this is the reason why his health is okay.
The president's health has always been the talk of the town, and being 75-year-old, the chief executive has also admitted several health issues. He is suffering from such as muscle ailment, Buerger's disease, back pains, and migraines. Harleen?
Would you know until when the president will be staying in Davao City, Rosalie?
Harleen, Malacanang does not give details as to when will the president return to Manila. But presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says whether the president stays in Davao or here in Metro Manila, he assures the president keeps on working.
Thank you so much, Rosalie Cos, for that report.
This year's census will proceed this September, according to the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA. This comes after Senator Francis Tolentino raised his concern on how the house-to-house census will be done amid the ongoing threat of COVID-19 in the country. According to NEDA Acting Secretary Carl Kendrick Chua, they will proceed with the census next month as long as the quarantine restrictions will not be reverted. Chua says the census 2020 was originally slated last May but postponed due to the enhanced community quarantine, or ECQ. He adds NEDA and the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, have been coordinating with local government units for the conduct of Census 2020.
So this is on track to begin in September. This is important activity that even during the GCQ we will proceed, so long as we will not have a worsening of the quarantine status.
Meanwhile, Representative Janet Garin denies allegations of her involvement in the PhilHealth anomaly during her term as DOH Secretary. The lady lawmaker also questions the resurfacing of the issue. Ray Pelayo tells us why.
Bakit ngayon kung kailan nakikilala na ang totoong mafia? Tila nililin lang, tinatakpan, linilihis, inuuto tayo.
This was the question of former DOH Secretary and now Iloilo 1st District Representative Janet Garin on the issues surrounding the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, or PhilHealth, which have resurfaced and also alleged by Senator Richard Gordon. Garin is among the officials included in the Blue Ribbon Committee report to be filed with cases. It also includes former Budget Secretary Butch Abad and former PhilHealth President and CEO Alex Padilla. The grounds for the cases are technical malversation and violation of the Code of Conduct of Ethical Standards for public officials and employees. During today's hearing, Senator Gordon said that in 2015, more than 10 billion pesos of senior citizens' premium was diverted to the construction of 3,200 barangay health stations. It was a DOH project at the time, and allegedly, Garin asked the budget from the Department of Budget and Management. Based on the report, only 270 stations out of the more than 3,000 barangay health stations were completed. Gordon's report comes after a year when the alleged corruption in PhilHealth was first investigated, which is separate from the ongoing probe being conducted by both chambers of Congress.
This is very clear. Paulit-ulit niya itong inungkat. Pinaimbestigahan pa ng PhilHealth sa loob at sa labas. Walang nakita. Why? Because it's very clear that the alleged 10.6 billion is non-existent.
Garin said that she initiated reforms in PhilHealth during her time, but they were scrapped by her successors, she added.
Nakita ko gaano kaluma, kabulok ang sistema sa loob. That is why I introduced reforms.
Garin calls on all those concerned to penalize the real members of the alleged mafia in PhilHealth. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Malacanang confirms the Office of the President has received the resignation letter of PhilHealth CEO and President Ricardo Morales. This comes after the revelation of Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara that President Rodrigo Duterte had advised Morales to submit his resignation letter because of his serious medical condition of lymphoma. Meanwhile, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says they are still awaiting the president's further action or instruction regarding the matter. For now, there are no details yet as to who will replace Morales.
Pero ang presidente po, dati ko na sinasabi, zero tolerance po yan para sa korupsyon. Dapat malinis, walang bahig ang pagkatao. Dapat po may managerial skills at dapat marunong magbantay ng kaban ng bayan. Dahil kung hindi babantayan, talaga pong napakalakas ng temptasyon para ubusin yung kaban ng bayan para sa personal na interest.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that more than 5,000 new cases were reported today, based on tests done by 95 out of 109 laboratories. Over 3,000 of those additional cases were reported in the National Capital Region, while Laguna contributed more than 400 new COVID-19 patients, followed by Negros Occidental with 304. The 5,277 additional coronavirus cases bring the country's total case count to more than 202,000 today. There were 65,764 active cases, of which 91.6% are in mild condition. We have lost 99 more patients. But through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 1,131 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 133,460. Thanks be to God.
And let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of close to 24 million confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignty. That's after almost 179,000 new cases were reported in various countries in the last 24 hours. The fast-spreading disease has claimed almost 820,000 lives, while close to 15.6 million patients across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection, thanks be to God. The Health Department reiterates the term reinfection should not be used to determine some cases of COVID-19. Our health correspondent Aiko Miguel details why.
Experts are still studying samples collected from Interior Secretary Eduardo Año and other personalities after they tested positive for COVID-19 again. But according to the Health Department, the said cases and their conditions can't be considered as reinfection at this point.
Patulad po ng lagi naming hinihiling, sana wag muna po natin gamitin yung term na reinfection because we do not have that much evidence yet to say that it's really reinfection. Kasi po pag naririnig ng mga tao na galing sa atin o kaya sa media, they think na talagang totoo.
The DOH and its technical working group also reiterate the report that some researchers have released, which claim a case of COVID-19 reinfection in Hong Kong can't be considered as concrete scientific information unless a peer-reviewed scientific journal is released. The Health Department adds it is continuously monitoring all the scientific information available on the reinfection issue. But the Health Department also emphasizes that nobody has an immunity passport for COVID-19.
Ibig sabihin, yung antibodies that we develop when we become COVID-19 positive, it doesn't last long dito po sa katawan natin. So yung possibility or probability na maaring magkaroon tayo uli ay naandyan lagi. Pero kailangan pa po natin ng sapat na ebidensya, mas maraming ebidensya para masabi natin talaga that reinfection really exists.
The World Health Organization even stated the other day that there is no study yet to prove how long a COVID-19 survivor's antibodies last to protect the person against COVID-19. The DOH Technical Working Group is also conducting a thorough study on the so-called reinfection. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration expresses disappointment that some local governments are requiring overseas Filipinos who have been allowed to return to their provinces to get retested and to re-isolate. Joe Anano tells us why.
The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA insists that overseas Filipino workers who have already tested negative for COVID-19 should be allowed to go home. In today's episode of Get It Straight with Daniel Razon, OWA Administrator Hans Leo Kakdak reiterated that local government units should no longer require OFWs who have yielded negative COVID-19 results to undergo another testing and quarantine. The official emphasized that OFWs should instead undergo home quarantine or barangay officials could monitor them instead of retesting and re-isolation.
Basta't negative at saka asymptomatic, pwede ng home quarantine at karamihan ng LGUs yan ang ginagawa. Cebu, Davao, Baguio, no, yan ang ginagawa nila. At wala naman tayong nakikitang adverse effect nito sa komunidad at sa mga munisipalidad.
Kakdak also complained there had been some instances in which OWA had to pay for the cost if the LGU isolated returning OFWs in a hotel. Another scenario is that OFWs are placed in an improper isolation facility upon arrival in their provinces, and then OWA is blamed for negligence.
Ang problema, merong mga LGUs at the provincial level ay sinasagkaan doon pa lang sa pagdating swab testing na naman, rapid testing, hotel quarantine at sasabihin ko sa inyo na sa ilang mga lalawigan, OWA na naman na nagbabayad ng hotel doon. It's also heartbreaking kasi uuwi doon, ilalagak sa schoolhouse, 6, folding bed, isang CR na hindi mo maintindihan kung paano ang sistema doon. And then, kami ang mumurahin ng OFW sa Facebook. Ang medyo masakit di ba? Kasi nalagaan natin sila. And then pagdating doon, syempre ang tingin pa rin ng OFWs, OWA
OWA hopes that with constant coordination with the Department of the Interior and local government, a favorable policy on this issue would be created. Based on OWA's report, around 160,000 OFWs have been sent to their hometowns. OWA also assures it will exert all efforts to rescue the 11 Filipino seafarers who were stranded on a ship in Guangdong Province in China. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health once again warns against circulating information on prescription drugs which are believed to be used as treatment for coronavirus disease 2019. Aiko Miguel tells us why.
The DOH wants the public to understand that not all information they read online, which claim to be safe and effective cure for COVID-19, are true, unless tried and tested by experts through clinical trial phases. The Health Department has received reports that some people are using off-label drugs for COVID-19. The DOH explains that each drug has a definite use once sold in the market. Misuse of drugs can be dangerous to one's health.
I just like to warn those people who are giving these off-label drugs na tinatawag natin. Off-label siya kasi produce siya for another purpose. Hindi po dapat tayo sumusubok ng ganito hanggang hindi po tayo nagkakaroon ng approval ng FDA saka ng Ethics Review Board. So I'm just warning those doctors who are doing this without undertaking or undergoing through the regulatory process.
One of the reported off-label drugs used for COVID-19 is ivermectin, a drug for parasitic infestations. Ivermectin is also used for head lice and some skin conditions when used as a topical ointment.
So we give this ivermectin for some parasitic worms. And ito po ay pwede rin ibigay sa mga external parasites. So ito pong ivermectin na ginawa sa ibang bansa na study, no, it was done in vitro. No? Pag sinabi po natin in vitro study, sa laboratory po siya ginawa po siya, ginagamit pa lang dun sa mga petri dish, yung atin pong mga preparatory agents, no, nasa test tube, nasa petri dish.
According to the DOH, there is no report yet to prove the efficacy of ivermectin to treat COVID-19 or that it can be used to protect against coronavirus. Also, according to the DOH, there are no clinical trials yet being conducted in the Philippines for a potential COVID-19 vaccine. The DOH expects that the clinical trial for Japanese anti-flu drug Avigan on 100 COVID-19 patients in 4 hospitals in the country will start in September. I'm Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
In other news, the Department of Transportation will require 100% cashless transactions in all toll plazas and expressways nationwide. Joanna Nano tells us why.
The Department of Transportation wants to limit person-to-person contact in toll plazas and expressways to prevent the possible transmission of coronavirus disease 2019. Effective November this year, there must be total cashless transaction in all tollways and expressways across the country. Earlier today, the DOTR released a copy of a memorandum order instructing the Toll Regulatory Board and expressway operators to draft the implementing rules and regulations for this policy and requiring all motorists traversing expressways to use RFID stickers.
Ito po yung isang solusyon para maiwasan po yung yung contamination, infection po nung between the driver and the tellers po. And eventually po makaka-solve din po dun sa traffic kasi mas mabilis po yung pagka RFID ka versus yung CAS.
Motorists are encouraged to avail of RFID stickers as expressways impose cashless transactions. RFID stickers are available at toll plazas and cost 200 to 500 pesos, which serves as initial load.
I was talking to President of Skyway yesterday. Mostly, yung sa number na sinabi niya, toll tellers, dun sa collection group nila. I understand doon sa NLEX naman, kaya nagka-problema yung Bukawi. That was last month dahil din yata sa COVID. May mga affected yata. Hindi na nagsipasok. So na-apektuhan yung manning nung plaza.
The TRB also confirms that several tellers working for the Skyway and North Luzon Expressway have tested positive for COVID-19. Several employees of the Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway or TPLEX have also been found to be infected with SARS-CoV-2, so the expressway's manpower deployment has been affected. Joanna Naro, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Education plans to hire displaced private school teachers for the upcoming school year's blended learning program. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
440 private schools in the country will temporarily close this school year 2020-2021 due to a low turnout of enrollment. The Alliance of Concerned Teachers Private Schools also reports that more than 400,000 private school teachers and staff have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. To help displaced private school teachers, the Department of Education plans to hire them as para-teachers or tutors that will assist students on the agency's blended or distance learning program.
Realistically, alam naman natin na may mga mothers talagang hindi sila handa. Not that hindi nila kaya, but nagtatrabaho sila, marami silang concerns.
DepEd is finalizing the guidelines for hiring para-teachers or tutors in time for the public school opening on October 5, 2020. Priority will be given to private school teachers who are within the same area as the students who are in need of assistance.
In terms of prioritization, ang tinitignan natin dyan talaga para hindi mabilis yung transmission, nakalagay yan doon sa draft guidelines natin, kung pwede nga kunin na lang yung taga doon mismo para wala nang traveling, no?
Education Secretary Briones said that the Department of Budget and Management has given the assurance on the project. The funds for hiring these tutors will come from the Special Education Fund of the local governments as well as from the school's maintenance and other operating expenses or MOOE. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Now, here's a glimpse of what's the weather like in parts of the country. A low-pressure area has been spotted east of eastern Samar. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says as of 3 p.m. today, the LPA was located at 960 kilometers east-northeast of Giwan, eastern Samar. Meanwhile, the southwest monsoon is affecting northern Luzon. This will bring cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms over Ilocos provinces, Batanes, and Babuyan group of islands, while Metro Manila and the rest of Luzon will experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers due to the southwest monsoon or the localized thunderstorms. Possible flash floods or landslides may occur during severe thunderstorms. No tropical cyclone advisory is issued.
Top military officials from Asia-Pacific countries have met online to discuss regional security and cooperation at the Chiefs of Defense 2020. Vice Admiral Gaudenco Colado Jr., the Vice Chief of Staff of the country's armed forces, represented the Philippines in the conference. 28 countries attended the virtual conference on August 24 to 25, Hawaii time, hosted by the United States of America and Fiji. The conference was initially scheduled to commence physically in Fiji, but was held virtually due to COVID-19 pandemic, according to the AFP.
And for the news abroad, here's Stephanie C. live from Hong Kong.
Good evening, William. Spain is going to get help from its army to identify and track people who have been exposed to the coronavirus, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said. The Spanish government plans to send about 2,000 soldiers to the regions. Spain has more than 400,000 confirmed cases of the virus, the highest in Western Europe and one of the fastest infection rates on the continent. If you are watching us from Honolulu, there will be free COVID-19 testing across the islands in the next 2 weeks. According to the official announcements, the city and county of Honolulu is partnering with the U.S. government and the state of Hawaii to test 60,000 people. Everyone can get tested, no need for symptoms, doctor's note, or health insurance. All you have to do is register ahead of time at this website, doineedacovid19test.com. According to the mayor of the city and country of Honolulu, Mayor Kirk Caldwell, the federal government and the Surgeon General funded the surge testing for COVID-19. Authorities say testing is one of the ways to understand how deeply COVID-19 is spreading in the community. Meanwhile, some good news. The 47 nations of the World Health Organization's Africa region were certified to be free of wild polio virus on Tuesday, August 25. The declaration comes 4 years after the continent reported its last case of wild polio virus in Nigeria and 24 years after it launched a polio eradication campaign. The Kick Polio Out of Africa campaign launched in 1996. During that time, wild polio virus paralyzed an estimated 75,000 children on the continent every year. But the continent has not reported a case of wild polio since August 2016. Now, the Independent Africa Regional Certification Commission says the World Health Organization's Africa region is free of wild polio.
This will be a momentous milestone for Africa. It marks only the second eradication of a virus from the face of the continent since smallpox 40 years ago. Now, future generations of African children can live free of wild polio virus.
While WHO and public health officials from across Africa celebrated their landmark achievement against wild polio virus, they also acknowledged it is not the end of polio. They also recognized the challenges posed by the current coronavirus pandemic. Laura is expected to rapidly strengthen to a Category 4 hurricane, according to the U.S. National Weather Service Hurricane Laura Public Advisory Number 26. Laura is forecast to produce a life-threatening storm surge, extreme winds, and flash flooding over eastern Texas and Louisiana later today. With the hurricane churning in the Gulf of Mexico, Corpus Christi in Texas can expect a high risk of rip currents, along with waves 3 to 5 feet increasing to 6 to 8 feet. Scattered showers will be possible today across the local beaches, along with an extreme UV index. A coastal flood advisory in effect through Thursday evening. Impacts from Hurricane Laura reaching the middle Texas coast. There will be 1 to 3 feet inundation with higher amounts of near Port O'Connor, according to the National Weather Service. People are advised of dangerous swimming conditions, especially near piers and jetties in Corpus Christi, Texas. And those are the updates in some parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Stephanie C., reporting live from Hong Kong.
August 26 is International Dog Day. In time for the celebration, Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto says that the city has 6 dogs up for adoption. Mickey, Tanya, Olga, Ranger, Maggie, and Dimple have retired from Pasig City's K9 unit. Mayor Vico says those who will adopt should be experienced in handling dogs. If interested, just message Pasig City DRRMO for screening. And those are the reasons behind the news, August 26, 2020. I am Jorlene Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III. Because we need to know, we will always ask why.
And I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.